Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. This is Stuart Cohen. We will get started in just a couple of minutes. Thanks so much for attending today's session on how MSPs can be a big benefit to the small businesses. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. This is Stuart Cohen. I'm the president of IGI Cyber Labs. I want to thank you for participating in today's SMB educational series that we have been providing for the last few months. The goal of these sessions is to provide education for SMB leaders, CEOs, COOs, CFOs, and other executives and leaders of organizations that don't have time to be prepared for all the ransomware attacks that are going on and all of the issues around risk and risk mitigation. And this is an opportunity to hear from industry experts to provide their insights and for you to be able to ask the questions you have on what are some simple and straightforward things you can do to get started as a leader of your organization. In the past, we've had conversations around compliance with folks from NIST and folks from the Center for Information Security around CIS 18. We've had folks talk about cyber insurance and what can you do to be prepared for cyber insurance and how can you be better prepared to get better coverage, lower premiums, and the like. We've also had conversations about what you should expect from your partner and how you should pick a partner. We have sessions coming up from HackerOne on how do people break into SMB accounts. We also have sessions coming up specifically on how to be better prepared, what the government can provide you as it relates to the executive letter from the White House to business leaders and to small businesses, as well as the letters from CISA and DHS around critical infrastructure and some things those organizations could do to be better prepared with the number of ransomware attacks that have been increasing and the potential risk of data loss, confidentiality, as well as what happens with a ransomware attack, how do you get your businesses back on track, and how do you begin to recover from a business continuity standpoint. Those are some of the topics we've done in the past. Today's session is really around how the MSPs can help small businesses. We are fortunate enough to have two industry leaders with us. Mark Perlstein is the Vice President of Sales and Marketing at Helixstorm, and Molly Moore is the CEO of Lightpoint. These two MSPs are doing business nationwide. They are interested in helping small businesses around the country that are looking for MSPs to get started, to help them with the issues they face. And they're going to talk a little bit today, not about their own individual organizations, but generically, how the MSP market can help the small businesses take a couple of steps to be safer and to be stronger. So with that, before I turn it over to them, I just wanted to say a couple of things. You see this on the slide. If you have particular questions, please put them in the chat box and we'll make sure we get to your questions today. If for some reason we don't get to all of your questions, we'll make sure we follow up with you on those. You will notice there's some handouts. Feel free to download the handouts as well. Please go to our LinkedIn group. If you could be part of the LinkedIn group, we'd appreciate it. If you have any topics you want to include there, let us know. And also additional insights you might have, from questions connected with your peers and the like, are all available on the LinkedIn event as it relates to today's session. So with that, I want to thank everybody for participating. Let you know that there will be this is recorded and the video will be available on YouTube in the next couple of days. And with that, I want to thank our two speakers for their time, their insights, their perspective, and feel free to ask any questions in the chat box whenever you're ready. So with that, I will turn it over to Molly and Mark.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Stuart, so much. Appreciate you and the entire Nodeware and IGI group for giving us this platform to talk to everyone today. We have a few things we'd like to cover. Mark and I are going to kind of go back and forth here. We'll jump in and comment on each other's kind of talking points. As Stuart said, we'd love to make it super interactive and make this valuable to you. So Stuart mentioned the word and term MSP. That stands for Managed Service Provider, for those that aren't aware. And really what that means is our businesses help small, medium businesses with their IT support and all of their IT strategy and kind of their soup to nuts needs across the board for IT. And we'll get into a little bit of that, but we're not here to sell you on using an MSP. You may have your own IT organization and staff within your business, and what we're really here is talking to you a little bit about cybersecurity and risks and vulnerabilities that are out there, a little bit about the rise in cyber attacks, which you can't turn on the news without hearing about that today. But mostly we're going to focus on the meat of this is on 4 tips to mitigate your risk. And then a framework for which to secure your business. So that's kind of the heart of what we're talking about. And, if you think that you might, towards the end, we'll talk a little bit about MSP. And if you think you might want some help in the IT arena, we'll give you some key questions to ask if you're looking at going down that path. And, what do you want to know about an MSP? What should they have in place to really support you very well? Anything to add to that, Mark?
No, all good. And like you said, appreciate the time from everybody here today. Thank you to Nodeware and IGI and to you, Molly. And we're here to help in any way we can. So hopefully it'll get interactive.
Excellent. All right, next slide, please. Perfect, thank you. So, again, we're really here to talk about cyber attacks and ransomware. But there are many different types of things that could impact your business continuity, and having a disaster recovery plan goes well beyond just what a lot of folks talk about, which is kind of backup and recovery. Really a good, strong business continuity and disaster recovery plan fully protects your organization from downtime. The whole goal is to kind of allow your organization to continue to function with as little disruption as possible. And so, there's obviously natural disasters. We're located in the Pacific Northwest. We worry a lot about the big earthquake coming. Last year, we had a bunch of fire, as everybody is kind of dealing with wildfires across the country now. Last year, during our really terrible September, we had one of our healthcare clinics that was in a rural location burned down. And then, you see things like having poor server or equipment, hardware storage. We just brought on a client recently that literally has their servers next to their hot water heater. Another client that had so much equipment kind of packed into a closet with no air ventilation that they were constantly going down. And so just things like that we see as an MSP, and I'm sure IT folks out there see as well, as things that they want to address and need to address. But again, today we're really here to talk about the cyber attacks, what's going on for your end users with phishing. Do you have correct remote access and security permissions? And then, of course, the big topic, which is ransomware, which is kind of a concern to all of us. Anything to add to that, Mark?
All good. We'll start to get into the meat and potatoes.
All right. I'll turn it over to you for the next slide.
Yeah, so thanks, Molly. You can't open up anything today related to news, and I don't think get hit with something about what's going on related to a cyber attack, a security issue, and of course ransomware making the news at levels that I don't think any of us could have predicted even just a year and a half or 2 years ago. Ransomware is without a doubt the most common form of cyber attack, and the reason is because of the value of your data to you, right? There is nothing more crucial to your day-to-day existence from a computer and electronic perspective than your access to your data. And it is exactly what ransomware intends to impede on with your day-to-day activity for your business. And I also don't think that a lot of SMBs realize that the days of it not being an issue for the smaller businesses, it's only something that will hit a larger organization. Those days are over, right? 90% of SMBs that get hit with a malware attack close within 1 year. And there's some data at the bottom of the slide here that says ransomware attacks are up 7 times according to Gartner. And by 2025, at least 75% of businesses are going to face one or more attacks. We are all in that universe of potential victims. And at the end of the day, and we're going to talk to you about this as we go through this, the time to prepare is now, because retroactively, you really don't have much that you're able to do, right? And I think the other thing that Molly and I are going to talk about today, Molly can chime in here, is that 95% of security breaches occur because of human error. And so the idea of a human firewall, which we're going to dig into here today, is as crucial as the technology protections that you will layer in. So there's another bullet at the bottom here that says 84% of US organizations have reported phishing or ransomware security breaches or attacks in the past 12 months. And a lot of people don't even know that they've been breached for quite a long while. So there's stuff going on inside your environment that you're not even potentially aware is going on. All of this sort of bubbles up to a meta message, right? A macro issue that we all have to be sensitive to what's going on out there and start to protect ourselves now, rather than trying to be reactive to something that is going on, because then it is too late. Molly?
Yeah, the only thing that I would add to that is, I have talked to a lot of SMBs and CEOs, and, they just don't think that it will happen to them. They think that this is going after only big business, and it really isn't. And especially in the past year plus, focus on SMBs has been a big part of what these folks are doing. And that's because you are just more vulnerable. You're easier to attack. You don't have the tools and systems that larger business does. These bad actors are able to access your systems more quickly and fully take over them over more quickly. And so it's really easy money for these attackers to be able to get into your systems as a small business. So I would just definitely encourage folks not to think that this won't happen to them, because it really, as the quote there on the right states, it's not really a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
And I'll add, to Molly's point, ransomware has become a business of bad actors and people that are interested in doing harm rather than trying to do good. But it has become a huge business out there, and it is only increasing in its prevalence and its issues out there in the marketplace. So everyone is a potential victim. Everyone needs to protect themselves. There's no surefire way to avoid everything, but there are things you can do to protect yourselves now.
Great. Next slide, please. Mark, you have this one.
Yeah. So Molly came up with this concept, and I love it, right? Vulnerabilities can lead to a breach. And as we all know, Nodeware is a vulnerability management product and solution out there, among others. And at the end of the day, it is our responsibility to try to identify our vulnerabilities so that we can prevent a potential breach. One item there in the upper left, end user phishing. A major source of penetration into your systems are emails that come in from an external source that are very crafty and make the user believe it's all legitimate. And I have erred on this, as I think all of us have. You think something is sincere and real and coming at you, and you click on something, and all of a sudden, inadvertently, you have opened yourself up to a breach. And this goes to training employees, understanding how to identify things that are coming at you. This is one of the most prevalent ways that that bad actors can enter your environment. Patching of your systems. So this is the technology side of things, and we're going to talk more about this, but software that is riding on and in all of your systems have patches that come out on a regular basis. And one of the most popular and prevalent areas of patching are security patches. And unless they are applied appropriately, properly, with the right diligence and in the right way, then vulnerabilities grow, right? So a small vulnerability to start becomes a bigger vulnerability later because the patches aren't layered in. Open remote access, right? So all of us are increasing the prevalence of working from home for a whole lot of reasons, not the least of which is the crazy times we've all been through related to COVID. And now everybody sort of embracing the work from home and remote access workforce. And it does leave us open to things that we have to consider that may have been things we didn't need to consider as prevalently later. And security permissions within your systems. Interesting, right? All of the back end criteria that you set up for allowing people access and different levels of access into your systems can leave you open, if not managed properly, to inadvertent and unexpected breaches. Again, nothing nefarious being done internally, just not being aware of all the dials that you can tune to help make things better and more protected for you. Molly?
I think you covered those. It's great.
Great.
Next slide, please. All right, so the pains of a ransomware attack. So these things are fairly straightforward, but you know, downtime, obviously, you've got hours or days that your systems can be offline. You can't serve your clients during that point, and your employees aren't working. And then you have this whole kind of concept of the recovery amount of time. How long does it take to get them back online and recover the lost data to where you're becoming operational from that downtime? Reputation is a big thing. We've all heard of big names, big logos that have had a cyber attack, and it takes months, years, lots of effort around brand in order to rebuild that trust and reputation in the marketplace. Also, cyber thieves love to attack again. So if they find one company that they were able to get into once, likely they believe that they may not have shored up their organization, and they'll try again. And boy, what a painful thing to go through more than once. And then, of course, the cost of the lost business, how long it takes you to recover systems and the employees and people and tools to get there. The actual potential for payment for the ransomware, of which, by the way, that cost is going up and up and up. And then you are likely going to be hiring an IT firm or a person to help you. You're going to need all hands on deck to bring everything back up and get running again and serving your clients. Mark, anything to add to that?
No, I think just all things everybody needs to think about that maybe we didn't have to think about 2 years ago.
Yes. All right, so getting into the meat of it, here are the 4 tips. Stuart, did you have a comment or question?
Yeah, before we get into this, we did get a question from somebody who said, you know, we have desktop support at our organization, but that's all we have. How would we get started if we have a limited budget, but we want to get some additional help?
Yeah, so, and I'll let Mark join in here too, but so, you know, we have both fully managed services where we are managing the entire, like I said earlier, soup to nuts on the IT infrastructure, but we also have what we call co-managed solutions. So co-managed may mean that an organization might have like an IT director, but they need help with all the day-to-day, the desktop support, et cetera. or it might be the complete opposite, whereby they've got a person or people on staff that are there to help people with, print issues and password changes, et cetera, but they need help on the higher end. Maybe it's cloud migrations or server support. So we have models whereby we can kind of meet the needs across the board, depending on, the staffing levels that you have in your organization. Mark, would you add anything to that?
Yeah, all valid. I would also add that a lot of managed services providers, and we are one of them, have developed pricing models that are per user and per device related. So they naturally scale up and down with the size of the business that we might be supporting. And so I think you'd be surprised how wide a breadth of services can be offered fairly economically and scalable. There may be a little bit of a step for some minimums, but they are generally not prohibitive. And so I think the offerings out there in the marketplace have been developed to a maturity level where you can take advantage of a lot of the expertise that has been aggregated into MSPs without having a huge sort of step function cost that you need to jump over.
Absolutely, and we follow the same model per user pricing per month. And it was really beneficial for folks last year during COVID when maybe you furloughed some folks to kind of get through that time frame until your business was kind of back to pre-COVID levels. And so we were able to kind of scale up, scale down. Maybe you go and hire or 10 people, or you acquire another business. We can quickly just turn those folks on by executing on some software on your systems and up and running the next day. So it really allows a very flexible, nimble approach to supporting your IT environment.
Thank you very much. I think that's great.
Awesome. All right, so our 4 tips, and once again, Mark and I will tag team these. I'm going to take the first one, and I'll refer to security risk assessment as an SRA, and I'm going to take a little bit of time on this one because it really is really important, and we provide an annual security risk assessment for all of our clients. It's definitely something you should look for in your MSP or your internal IT organization if you don't already. You may be required, you might be a financial services organization or a healthcare organization, and you may be required from a compliance perspective to actually deliver on an annual security assessment. So they should be done annually. They should score on a number of items, and they should identify kind of key areas of risk for your business and give you a roadmap with which to focus on different initiatives in order to beef up your security within your organization. So for us, we look at 3 different kind of areas and focus areas for the security risk assessment. The first is technical. So technical could include things like, what are your password policies? What are the user permissions that you have? What are your backups? Do you have online, offline backups? What does your network design look like? How many tools do you have in place from a security perspective? Do you have things like antivirus, et cetera? What kind of remote access capability do you have for your users? And what is your firewall configuration? This is just a handful. It's much more than this, but that's, again, area number 1, which is technical. The second area is physical, and so those are things like, do you have security cameras within your building and outside of your building? What kind of laptop or workstation security do you have? Meaning, just if somebody gets up and leaves their desk, and you might have, housekeepers or what have you in the building, other vendors, is that secure as somebody has walked away from their desk? How do you inventory your hardware, and how do you track that? So if something gets lost or stolen, what do you do? What is the process by which you follow? And then the third is administrative. So, what are your security training policies? What are your hiring policies? Do you do background checks on individuals who join your organization? And then the other side of that, when you terminate someone, do you have a very specific termination policy you're following? And then what is your mobile device policy? Everybody has mobile devices now, and many multiple mobile devices, and how are you tracking those, and what are they allowed, what are your users allowed to do with those? So those are the 3, technical, physical, administrative, and for each of these, you should have a plan in place to address your risk areas. So you should have an assessment of those current security measures across those, a likelihood of the threat occurrence for each of those, what that impact or that threat might be to your organization. And then that just that gets you to a place where you have this whole, as I said earlier, roadmap and game plan to address your highest risk and create projects and initiatives to mitigate against those. The other thing I'd say that as part of your security risk assessment, you should have a threat response plan. So I'm going to talk for just a second about a bit of personal painful experience that I have gone through. And this was before coming to LightPoint. I worked for another private business and we had a ransomware attack. And what happened there for us, we were hard down for 2 days. So we were a 7x24 shop servicing thousands of clients, and we were hard down for 2 days. It was very painful. We found out that the initial breach into our system was human caused. So it was a phishing attempt whereby somebody clicked on a link that they shouldn't have clicked on. And these bad actors or cyber attackers were actually in our systems for 3 months before they initiated the ransomware. They initiated the ransomware in the middle of the night, and within about 4 minutes, they had all of our servers down and entire control of our systems. And we did not have a threat response plan in place. So, we didn't have a way to communicate as a leadership team. We were able to bring up our email and Outlook email very quickly. However, we were unable to communicate that way because we didn't know if the hackers still had access to our systems. We had to assume that they did. So we were scrambling to figure out, okay, let's get everybody's personal emails together. And we were, suddenly just leveraging our Gmail accounts to come up with a game plan. It would include things like creating a communication plan for your clients. So how are you going to communicate with them? What are you going to communicate to them? You're probably dealing with lawyers at that point. And you're talking about ways with a threat response plan. Basically, how are you going to sustain your business operations without access to either all or some of your systems? And what is the most important system to protect? You've got billing systems, communication infrastructure. Maybe you have a manufacturing system, or in your healthcare, you have an electronic health system. So these are just things that you want to include as part of your threat response plan. And I'd just say, you really should assume that something will happen and plan for that and be prepared, because it is really shocking when it happens. You want to be prepared. All right, do you want to take number 2, Mark?
Yeah, sure. And we're going to talk about it in the next slide, right? So having the right technology, very easy to say, a little more complex actually to implement and execute. It can be a little daunting. It does not need to be. But there's a list of, and we can share this with you after the webinar. I've got a list with Molly of about 14 areas of technology that should or could be considered as you begin to protect, quote unquote, your perimeter, right? This is all about sort of preventing the intrusion from a technology perspective. It's really, as we'll talk about in the next slide, your first line of defense against what might come at you and what is constantly coming at you, whether aware of it or not, from the market that we operate within, all of us, right? In that ubiquitous electronic marketplace. So there is no single answer to having the right technology. There is no one way to do it. This is where I think some advice and consult from some experts in the marketplace can help you sort of sift through all the various sort of head exploding decisions that need to be made, and someone that's been through it can help you, I think, get through it pretty easily and quickly. But we all need to have the right technology protecting us around our perimeter, and also understanding how to implement and use the technology that we need to run our businesses. And then you want me to hit training your staff, Molly?
Yep, that'd be great.
Yep. And so Molly Molly's anecdote of what happened to her is perhaps the most powerful item in this entire webinar, because it brings to a personal level the reality of what happens. It has happened to numerous clients of ours. It has happened to numerous partners of ours. It has happened to people that we network with and we just sort of interface with at a community level where we do business. The story that Molly told is being repeated over and over and over again. And as Molly said, the intrusion originally happened through a phishing attack, an email that looked innocuous, that was interacted with, an external link was clicked on, and all of a sudden the door was opened wide to these bad actors to enter the environment. And as Molly talked about, within moments, although they were in there fishing around, no pun intended, for quite a while, gathering all the information they needed to understand where the applications and the data sat. And then the moment they wanted to strike, within minutes, systems shut down. There is no way to be 100% effective on the human error element of this, but we can be far more effective than we are by properly implementing training to our users and training to ourselves. This is not hierarchical. Just because you're CEO, president, or a senior VP of a company does not mean you are any more or less likely to invite somebody into your environment than a staff member. Nobody nefarious in their intentions, but due to just error or lack of awareness, and this is really called security awareness training, we inadvertently let a bad actor into our environment. So this is that human firewall, right? The human behavior aspect of protecting your environment, it can't be overstated. Molly?
Yeah, so I would just add to that, don't try to do this training yourself. There are a lot of services out there that do this. Certainly, Mark and I have solutions for this for our clients, but there's just so much content out there. Trying to cover it yourselves is very difficult. The training that is available is super entertaining. It will keep people engaged. It can be gamified. It can provide rewards to your employees for taking it and not clicking on a link. So you want to make it fun, interactive, informative, and you want to make it reward focused. You also don't want to say anything bad to anybody who did click on a link, right? It's not about that. It's just about providing more and better training. So I would definitely outsource this component as part of what you focus on.
And I'll add to that, right? To Molly's point, not punitive, right? This is about encouragement and truly finding teaching moments. And the security awareness tools that are out there, to Molly's point, extremely entertaining training, but also some pretty sort of ingenious ways to train. Some of those tools will run sample phishing attacks, right? So it'll send sort of fictitious phishing emails to people. I've been caught, right? All of us probably have, but it sensitizes you to what's going on. So not only shouldn't you do this yourself, I would say just absolutely don't even try. There's so many tools out there that are extremely affordable that will deliver to you a very, very high level of training and awareness.
Yeah, and this email phishing is, it's just rampant at this point, and it is so sophisticated now. It's no longer the thing where somebody's asking you to, send them money to another country. So it's much more sophisticated than that. It will trick your employees, and it will just bring to light kind of what's happening in awareness. All right.
Before we move to cyber insurance, a couple of things. One, we'd be interested in having everybody fill out a poll question that we're going to put up. We have a few poll questions that we do consistently throughout these educational series. So if you could respond to the poll question, we would appreciate it. And second of all, it just reminds me when you were talking about it, there's a there's a famous casino that somebody got into through the thermostat of the fish tanks, because the thermostat that's IoT connected, they never changed the default password. And you hear the same thing about, Ring doorbells and cameras that are security cameras that never had the passwords updated. Can you just comment a little bit about how it's not just, the PC and the server that you have to worry about, but it's all the IoT devices that organizations need to be thinking about?
Sure, Mark, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, sure. To Stuart's point and his example, we are in an ever connected, more broadly connected world. So devices that historically we never really thought about being sort of on our network are now on our network. And every device that is connected, and the way that it is connected and architected, either makes you more prone or less prone to a bad actor entering your environment. And it is very easy to forget about those peripheral devices that we just take for granted every single day: security cameras, right? All the different things that we receive data from and are collecting data from us. And all of those things are potential pathways into your environment. So it is not just about the computer on your desktop, to Stuart's point. It is far broader, and we have so many things connected to us today that we really do need to have a 360 view of the thought process around what those devices are. Molly?
Yeah, and I think the the good and the bad of COVID means a lot more folks working from home, and so there's devices on your network that you probably have almost no control over, and you'll want to account for that as well as people are working from home.
I will also add that some of this is, so much of this can be handled properly with the right network architecture, right, and the right issues related to network security. And just adhering to some common principles that sort of even a mid-level network architect would be aware of, but that those of us that are business owners may not be aware of, that can protect you pretty quickly.
Absolutely. All right, should we move to number 4?
Sure.
Okay. So I will just start by saying I'm not an insurance expert, and Stuart mentioned earlier that he had run a previous topic on cybersecurity, so this is not going to go in depth, but it is amazing to me how so many prospects and folks I talk to who are not aware or have never considered cybersecurity insurance. I think it's a must-have these days, unfortunately, and talk to your insurance broker about details, but cybersecurity insurance can cover a multitude of things: expenses related to notifying your customers about the fact that you've had a breach, the extortion payment that you might make to a bad actor, the credit monitoring for your clients. So a lot of times when there's a massive breach and the attackers are able to gain access to your client's personal information, a lot of folks will offer credit monitoring to their clientele as part of this. It can cover legal fees, the loss of your business opportunities during downtime and inability to service your clients and potential clients. The whole investigation component and fixing the security flaws, and any fines, depending on how devastating the attack is, you may have fines to pay as well. So these hackers, they like to focus on industries that collect the kind of data that they want. So they'll want to go after folks that are collecting credit card info, personal information, especially healthcare is a big target. Educational universities also a big target, and kind of any business that has large customer databases. So these attackers are not only going after your data to hold that in ransom, they're also now getting to the point where they're trying to sell or expose that data online if you don't pay the ransomware. So cybersecurity insurance is really important. There's 2 types. There's the first party coverage that will help kind of cover expenses when your systems or networks are breached, or your data is stolen. And then the second component is a third-party coverage, and that's that offering protection when or if a client sues your company for failing to prevent a breach at your business. So, you know, if your board members or other investors or partners aren't already asking you about whether or not you have cybersecurity insurance, they probably will be. It's certainly becoming more and more of the norm at this point, and it would be something to definitely look into. Mark, what would you add to that?
Yeah, those of us that have been in the managed services space are very well aware of cybersecurity insurance, and it's kind of, you know, brass tacks to us in terms of operating. I don't think a lot of SMB business owners are aware that, one, it actually is available. It can be quite affordable. And it is a protection that is very much worth having. So I think it's an issue that, and Stuart, Molly, and I were talking about this prior to the webinar. We're surprised that it's not more prevalently discussed, but I think our prediction is expected to rise materially. So if people aren't talking to you about it, you should be talking to others about it.
And I will just say also, there are tools out there that if you have those tools installed as part of your, you know, your whole cybersecurity support, they will actually come with cybersecurity insurance. We have a tool that we use here and that we deploy to our clients that want it, that include coverage of $500,000 of cybersecurity insurance. And, you know, it's a great benefit. It's a great way to protect yourself and to also have that just added you know, security around knowing that you're protected.
You know, to that point, Molly, you know, to that point, we've had people that have run Nodeware in order to put together the right documented processes and procedures for the devices they have, what's exploitable, what in their different networks they need to be aware of and they need to take care of. And people have then taken that information and used it in their questionnaire for their cyber insurance to prove, you know, their level of documentation. To that point, you know, maybe it's worth talking about other tools that you might have that allow people to better fill out their questionnaire or better be prepared to respond to some of the requirements of a cyber insurance opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, and again, I'm not an expert, but yes, there's multiple tools out there. There's security operations centers that are 24/7. That if you have that kind of support, it's really important in terms of your coverage. There's you know, the vulnerability scanning, different threat monitoring activities, all kinds of tools that will come as part of the overall support and will also help you to have less expensive insurance. And so that's kind of another key point, is if you have the tools and the sophistication in place, your insurance will be much lower from a policy perspective. Mark, do you have anything else to add to that?
You know, the reality is all of this leans on and leverages the use of tools and technologies that have been developed by others, right, that have poured a tremendous amount of capital and intellectual property into their solutions that allow you to take advantage of it. And to Molly and Stuart's point, not only will your cybersecurity insurance go down, but often the requirements of your cybersecurity insurance are to have these things in place. So it really is bi-directional, and I think just pursuing the insurance policy will uplift your stance on the cybersecurity spectrum, because it will introduce you to things that you should be doing, but that you will need to do in order for your insurance policy to take effect.
Absolutely. All right, next slide, please.
So as we transition to the next slide, we would like to put up one more poll question. Molly or Mark, whoever's going to talk to this slide first, go ahead to let people just respond to the poll while we start this next topic.
You want me to start, Stuart?
Yeah, you can go ahead.
Yeah, great. So Molly mentioned earlier that we would be talking about a framework, and I think it's important to repeat. there is no one way to do this, but there are things that no matter what you do, I think we all believe should be considered in what you're implementing or executing. And the title of this slide talks about a concept known as defense in depth, and very easily or quickly, defense in depth really refers to the idea that there's not one thing that you do to put in place a cybersecurity policy, but there are multiple things you do that when connected together create a layered approach to provide you the protection that you need out there. And so we've developed this idea of 4 lines of defense. And what we're going to do in this framework is also link it to the tips that we just talked about. So the first line of defense that we speak to is what we call detect and deflect. And so that is really all about layering in all the technology that is out there, picking properly with probably leveraged use of a consultant or an advisor or a managed services provider to assist you, and layering in the right technology solutions to help you detect things that are coming into your environment and deflecting those things or avoiding the penetration into your environment. So when we talk about the 4 tips that we put up earlier, tip 1, choosing the right technology, and tip 2, executing that annual security assessment. And although this may seem obvious, but I'm going to say it anyway, the assessment identifies things that you need to remediate. So we also have to focus on a plan to execute those elements of remediation so that the security assessment is put to leveraged use. And obviously, nodeware is a critical piece of the detect and deflect strategy of that first line of defense, right? That's the prevention side of this from a technology perspective. And so then the second line of defense, and I think we can move the slide forward, is what we call train and behave. And that really is that third tip that we put up on the prior screen, which is creating that human firewall, training employees on how to spot malicious activity and teaching them how to behave once they think they have spotted something, right? So it's training your staff, training yourselves, training people that interact with your business to assist you in creating that human firewall to protect your business. Because as Molly mentioned, that phishing email that looks very proper, official, and very well architected, and this can't be a trick, well, they've gotten pretty crafty. So trying to teaching ourselves how to better identify what is coming at us is a huge protection mechanism for intrusion. And then the third, which goes back to the technology piece, but is a particular carve out that I don't think enough people consider out there, given what is available in the marketplace and what can be architected. I think we can hit the enter button again on the screen to move the slide forward. So that is really about your what we call test and recover. And that third line of defense is about implementing a properly architected backup system for your applications and data. Because in the event that either an intrusion comes through your protections and or a human being has improperly behaved, again, unknowingly, to allow something into your environment, and you wind up with Molly's oh my God scenario of then being ransomed, what do you do? And we had a customer come to us with 50 terabytes of data that woke up one morning and was ransomed and called us, right? They weren't a client before this. They are a very important client to us now, and said, what can we do? And we said, not a whole lot. We either negotiate with the terrorists or we start from ground zero and we build ourselves up in a more protected way. And the last resort in all of this, from a technology perspective, is architecting your backup systems properly. And there's a word that's being used out there that I'm going to mention here. Sounds all very fancy. It's called immutable, right? But immutable backups really mean can't be deleted. Now, there's some technical nuance to that, but ultimately, immutable backups are a critical element to the right backup system today. And then network separation is the other that I want to mention briefly, and that is that your backups actually are connected to you, but not through your core network connection, so that it can be recovered properly into an environment where it can be tested and you can be brought back to the pre-ransomware event. So from an insurance perspective, that's why we have these 3 lines of defense listed: detect and deflect, technology, train and behave, human behavior, test and recover, backup, the right properly architected backup solution. And then finally, 4 that we just spoke about, if we could hit the button again, your cybersecurity insurance, right? So that's your preparation for financial protection. If you do all 4 of these things, not to the level of boiling the ocean, not to an expense that can't be properly and appropriately borne, but at the right level for your business, you will be putting yourself in a position where you can sleep at night and say, I'm doing everything that I can to protect myself.
Yeah, the only thing I'd add is 2 things. So if you don't protect on the front end, you're going automatically to recover. And I think we talk about backups a lot. Everybody is aware of backups, the importance of backups, but much less aware about the protect side. And that's just a huge area of focus and opportunity. And in that vein, and one specific technology, I don't want to, we purposefully didn't go down the path of talking too much technology here, but if you do not have multi-factor authentication in your environment, you're crazy. You should be losing sleep at night. And I'm sure you're all aware of what this is, but when you go to log into a system, you're required to have a second layer of login whereby maybe you'll get a PIN sent to your cell phone that then you input into the system to gain access. I know it's a pain. We hear about it all the time. Our clients say they don't want to do it. It's a hassle for our end users. However, it is way less of a hassle than being hard down in your environment and paying a bunch of money to a bad actor. So highly recommend multi-factor authentication as part of your environment.
And I'll add that MFA, and Molly and I talked about this, it's just crucial to putting yourselves in a better position as it relates to protecting yourself. And it really straddles that first line of defense and second, because although it's about implementing the technology of MFA, it is also about people behaving and embracing it, right? And making sure that we're using it and understanding why we have to use it, so that any inconvenience from it is actually understood. So I agree with Molly, can't stress it enough. MFA, MFA, MFA.
All right, our last slide now. Mark will cover, what should you look for in an MSP when it comes to the security best practices? Mark, you want to take that?
Yeah, sure. So, if today's discussion didn't highlight it, right, security expertise woven into any and all, or all, certainly most of the offerings that you might be taking advantage of from your MSP. So even from the MSP that might be delivering quote unquote desktop services, it's my opinion, I think Molly would agree, that an MSP needs to weave into its desktop managed service and a security posture for your workstations, right? Even though it may not be all encompassing for your environment, an MSP should have security woven into every single thing that they're doing for you. An MSP should also have the concept of a framework in mind. As an example, one that comes from NIST, right? The National Institute of Standards and Technology. And actually, if you look at the security framework that NIST speaks about, you will see almost everything that we represented in our 4 lines of defense slide that we just spoke to. And they need to have a clear vision on security management. It can't be just a haphazard sort of ad hoc series of disconnected things. A MSP should have a clear vision on what they are doing for you, what their advice and consult is around security management. And that leads into the final item, which is a methodology on security technologies, end user training and backup and recovery, not shockingly linked into the framework that we just discussed. But, and obviously the fourth of cybersecurity insurance will carve that out. But your MSP should be able to help guide you through the process of not only buying the insurance, but the right way to leverage it and use it. Molly?
Great. Thanks, Mark.
Yeah.
So I promise not to oversell you on MSPs. You can read the bullets to yourself on the right there, but really at the end of the day, what an MSP does is provide a breadth of knowledge and expertise and a depth, so both. So in hiring one of us, you get, soup to nuts, the full capabilities from help desk folks all the way up to, really high-end engineers and security expertise, and then folks to help you with your IT strategy and guidance, how you align that to your business process and your business objectives. And so, we can deliver IT at a scale and an efficiency and effectiveness in a way that most organizations can't do for themselves. And we're happy to do it. We have very friendly, supportive IT folks, and they actually want to help you. They want to solve your problems. They appreciate your phone call. And as I kind of mentioned earlier, just this capability to be able to scale up and down with you, on the turn of a dime, it is another big benefit. Can we go to the next slide, please? So just wanted to provide contact info for both myself at LightPoint and then Mark at Helix Storm. We're here to help. We'd love to answer any questions as follow-up. There are 3 different attachments that were provided as part of this. I think you'll get that as part of the follow-up as well, so you can download them here or receive them later. What questions do you have for Mark or I?
Terrific. Molly, thank you very much. Mark, thank you very much. We just have a couple of minutes. What I'd like to do is put the last poll question up, and then I'd like to give you each kind of 30 seconds to make a comment or two as we wrap this up. And maybe it just ought to be, if you're considering an MSP, what should be the first couple of questions you ask, and or what should be the issues that keep you up at night that should make you think of calling an MSP. And Mark, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, so I'm looking at the poll that's up here, right? And employee awareness training or basic cyber hygiene for compliance to technology layer, we could probably add backup there. And so it's very difficult to make the decision of which one should go first. But by understanding what's going on in your environment, even during an introductory period and sort of in the cycle of just getting to know each other, an MSP should be able to provide some consultative help even from the beginning. So as Molly said, we're here to help you. We are interested in community engagement and doing the right thing for customers out there. So please lean on us as a market, but also specifically Molly and I.
Yeah,
Molly?
and I would just say that, let us be the ones that stay up at night worrying about your IT environment so you can focus on your business. At the end of the day, you probably didn't start a business so that you could worry about cybersecurity issues or a hardware failure or what kind of software to implement that would be the best to solve whatever problem it is you have. That's what we're here for, and we can help you sleep at night.
Perfect. Well, look, I want to thank both of you for your time today, for your insights, for your perspective. We continue to provide these SMB educational series webinars. As I said, we have one coming up with HackerOne, talking about how do they break into small businesses. We'll have a series of MSP discussions. We're also going to have one coming up probably with somebody from DHS or CISA talking about the executive letters from the White House. We really just want to thank everybody for their time. We're trying to educate SMB leaders with, you have a business to run, you have other things on your mind, but how do you take a couple of simple steps to be a little bit more protected, a little bit more secure, so you can answer the questions to your board and to your investors as to how is my data just a little bit more confidential than it was? How is the integrity of my systems just a little bit stronger? And how can I recover from a business continuity standpoint if something does happen to us? So we will continue to have these series. Please remember to go to LinkedIn and the LinkedIn events page, comment. If you have other presentations or presenters you'd like us to have in this session, please let us know that as well. And for any of you that want to let people know, the broadcast will be available on YouTube in a couple of days for anybody that's interested in watching it then. So with that, we are at the top of the hour. I want to thank everybody for their time, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the next session of our SMB webinar executive series. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.